of Both is Good, a podcast where DMs, GMs, lore keepers, and anyone who runs tabletop games talk to each other about how they run their games. I'm Adam, and I've been running my game mostly by the book.
And I'm Sierra, and I have barely read the book.
This is great, and this is a nice opportunity for us to just pick at each other's brains about various ways we run our D&D 5e games and to just hang out. Because we don't have enough time to just hang out.
Yeah. Hanging out is fun.
So let's do it. Yeah. This is just fun. We just get to hang out and talk D&D.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess, disclaimer, we're just two people on the internet talking about Dungeons & Dragons. We have played Dungeons & Dragons for quite a while combined in years between us. But, you know, you could disagree with us. Just don't add us.
Don't add us, please.
Yeah. Unless we tell you to. Then please add us.
There are select moments where we may ask you to add us. In which case, you're welcome.
Yeah. Just don't complain about what we like to do. Because you could have a different game than we have. That's what this podcast is all about, is just what makes our games fun for us. And then, I don't know, maybe picking up something from each other about how we run our games.
There's always room to learn.
Yeah. So, Mystic, it's been 2 weeks since we last recorded.
Yes.
How has D&D been for you in the last couple weeks?
Oh, man. It's been good. I haven't played as much as I would normally. So we played the podcast game. You leveled up.
Yeah.
Which was...
It's so exciting.
Yeah, so exciting. Everyone was like, wait, what? Like, yeah. It's time to be level 4. And then the Wednesday game plays every other week as well, opposite the podcast game. But my band had a show last night, so we did not play. And I'm a little sleepy.
Yeah. Did the performance go well?
It went great. We got told to turn down, which means we're a true rock and roll band, right?
Hell yeah. Yeah. How dare they?
Yeah, I think most exciting though for me in D&D is 2 days from now, you and I will be playing as players together in Daniel's campaign, and it's the only game. I'm a PCN, and I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm excited too. I'm curious where we're going to end up going from where we left off.
Oh, me too. Oh, I know where Margot wants to go.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But yeah, how was D&D for you the last few weeks?
Yeah. It's been good. Good. Friday game met one time. We didn't meet last week because it was Father's Day weekend. People were out of town. I instead ran a small one-shot with the 2 players who could make it. And that's always a lot of fun. I kind of do one-shots that are in-world and tangential to what's happening in the main story, and maybe explain where things are that the main cast doesn't know what's happening, or they have hints to it. So, I mean, that one-shot was really fun. They were both playing characters and had to go on kind of a heist-esque mission of subterfuge and stealth, and they were both playing non-stealthy, non-subterfuge characters, so, you know, it was a blast.
You didn't warn them that.
No. I never warn my players what the one-shots are
I hope it was
be.
a paladin and a fighter or something, you know? Or a cleric, like heavy armor.
Well, you know, it was our friend Morgus,
Yes.
so it was an armor artificer. Yes. And it was a fighter. So...
Yep.
You know, they did great. It made them role play, or it brought out more aspects of role play than just mechanical rolling the dice. And it was a blast for both of them.
Hell yeah.
It devolved very quickly into dating sim the session. Their characters were deeply in love immediately.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a blast. They had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun.
Love it.
And then chaotic, terrible things happened in my world, and it's wonderful.
It's fantastic.
I love the left turns. Yeah. And then main game met, and we got through another 7 days of downtime,
Mm-hmm.
which was cool. They learned more lore. They're getting ready to go towards their next goal. I played one session of Digimon RPG, which is chaotic in itself. You play two characters as a player when you're playing in that
Whoa.
game, and it's very, like, it takes a lot of just, like, what are we doing, and who's doing what, and being in two mindsets at once.
Mm.
So that's been interesting. It only meets kind of bi-weekly. And then the podcast game, which is always a blast, and we leveled up. We had some great conversations, and as always, I'm excited to get into the next game.
Yeah. It's
So yeah, and then
the end of an
I also have
era.
a Sunday game that happened. End of an era. We made it to level 4.
Made it to level 4. Everyone's still alive.
Well, kind of. In a
Some
sense.
people have been fundamentally altered.
Yeah.
It's fine.
A little bit of trauma.
What are we talking about today, Adam?
Today, we are talking about death, dying, and
Speak
resurrection.
of the
So I guess
devil.
just a general disclaimer on death, dying, and resurrection. That is a topic we're going to be talking about today. So if that is a topic that you are uncomfortable around, thank you so much for listening up to this point.
I would say the name
But
of
we're
the
gonna talk about
episode
it.
and also the graphic of the episode should have also been a warning, but I hear you
Yeah.
and I appreciate you for giving another verbal shout.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. But yeah, death, dying, and resurrection. I think both of us. Well, you haven't seen in my game.
Mhm.
Where do we want to start today
I don't know.
in talking?
Let's
about
start
dying,
with
and
death.
resurrection?
Let's start with death first. Or we could start with dying. Let's start the first part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you do anything weird with dying? So, I guess as general, the way dying works in D&D
Mm.
is if you're brought to 0 HP and you haven't taken enough damage to go to negative your health total, you don't die, you just go into an unconscious state where you start making death saving throws. If you, every turn you roll a d20 and you add your constitution saving throw to it, I believe. Now I'm second
No,
guessing
that's right.
myself since
Mhm.
I've said that. And then if you get a 10 or higher, it counts as a success. And if you get a 9 or lower, it counts as a failure. And you keep repeating this at the start of your turn until you accumulate either 3 successes or 3 failures. On 3 failures, you'll die. On 3 successes, you will stabilize, but remain unconscious for 1d4 hours, or until you receive healing.
Yeah. And if you roll a nat 20, you automatically win 2 of your slots. And if you roll a nat 1, you automatically lose 2 of your slots. And I believe
And
that
nat 20
is
Actually more powerful than that in 5e.
really.
Yes, in 5e, if you get a natural 20 on a death saving throw, you return to life with 1 HP.
What? How did I not know this?
Yeah.
I thought I was following
It's-
this by
it's
the
one of those-
rules as written.
Yeah, it's one of those arbitrary rules in 5e, because I think I might be wrong about this. I think in 3.5, that's how it worked, is if you nat 20'd, you got 2 successes on your death saves. Like, you get 2 fails. But in 5e, if you get that nat 20 on that death save, you come back with 1 HP. And it is epic. It is so good. It's my favorite thing that's ever happened in a 5e game. Because it tends to happen a lot with my characters in my Sunday game.
Well, I really thought I was following the book on that one.
It's all good. Like, that was something I think our Sunday game played wrong for, like, probably a year or 2 into our first campaign there. And then I really went in and I read the death saving throws rules because someone had rolled a 10 and we were confused as to whether or not a 10 was a success or a failure. So I read through the rules, and then I saw damage or rolling a 1 or a 20. It's like, yeah, if you roll a 20 on the d20, you regain 1 hit point. Which is just awesome. Because you make your death save at the start of the turn. So if you nat 20 on that death save, you come back with 1 HP and you get your full turn. You still have your action, your bonus action, and your movement.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you would think then if you got a nat 1, you would just die outright. But they're more kind than that in 5th edition.
Yeah.
You just
I
fail
guess
to.
I like the other way better. I don't know if it's 3.5 or what, but I definitely like the 2 and 2 better. Because dying is a fundamental scary part of being a player in a D&D game. Like, I don't think any player, at least any player that I know, has entered any session and been like, no one's gonna make me unconscious. Like, that's not something that I've never like had to deal with as a GM. And maybe it has happened where someone's like, you're never gonna take me down or whatever. Which, whatever, let them live their best life and you live yours. But like, that's part of the game, is like being down and having to make those rolls. I feel like, sure, the probability of rolling a natural 20 is, you know, whatever it is. And in the games that I play in, people roll a lot of fucking nat 20s, and I don't know what it is. Maybe you have more experience.
It's a 1 in 20.
You what?
It's a 1 in 20 on the D20.
Sure, yeah. I just feel like, especially the podcast game, we roll more D20s and more nat 20s and nat 1s than any other game I've ever played in. Like,
yeah. Maybe I'll start keeping tally of it during session, and we'll see if this completely changes the luck now that it's being right.
Yeah.
But like I think part of it's also because you remember the nat 20s and the nat 1s more than the 8s and the 13s. I think they just stick out more in your mind from like a psychological perspective, where it just seems like they're happening more often because they're the key parts of the story that you remember. But I will say, we have had some sessions where our dice have been hot as players. Like, we've just been nat 20ing through the roof. But usually it becomes, you know, the luck then swings for our group and we get a bunch of 1s in a row. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like each session I play D&D, like on average, I will roll 120 and 2 1s in each of the games that I play.
I don't play enough.
But I think that's also just my psychology, being like, you remember all of the ones where you failed. And that one time you got a nat 20 and you did something super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I probably roll 1 of each in a session, I would say, if not more. But in regards to dying, yeah, I feel like if all you had to do was roll a nat 20 and then you're actually like up with 1 HP, it kind of takes away the like, I mean, it doesn't, but to me it feels like lower stakes. And that like maybe dying isn't as much of a scary thing anymore.
Yeah, and I think you're in the majority of opinion on that. It's based on, like, you know, hearsay, just what I've heard about D&D 5e. One of the biggest things that people homebrew about it is the death and dying system. Because, like, having played through as many games as I have, it is very difficult for someone to die. Like, if you have a party who, like, has a generally good grip on what's going on in D&D, it is very difficult for the DM to throw in a situation where a character will die without making it just distinctly unfair.
You know what? This is a perfect moment where I'm going to throw in a little bit that I know about you that I don't think you know that I know about you, in that you have never had a player character die in a game. And I've heard that you really want it to happen.
I'm interested to see it happen. It hasn't happened with any of my characters yet, but also it kind of has now, but it hasn't technically. So, it's not one of those things where I'm like haywire making bad decisions to purposely endanger my characters and put my characters in a situation where they will die. It's just kind of one of those points of data that I'm trying to take on 5e, Because it is very difficult, and the consensus from the community is it's very difficult for anyone to die.
I mean, I've never had a player character die either. I've been very close. I've been like one death save away, and then someone finally made it over and like gave me a potion or whatever, And I love that. I love the feeling that invokes within me and at the table. Because then not only is it a storytelling element for that person, it's also a storytelling element for the entire party. And also the DM as the person ensuing battle. Like, there's the evil DMs that are going to keep attacking the person that's unconscious on the ground, right? And like, whoa, like that is always a possibility.
Yeah. I guess I will reveal that I may be one of those evil DMs.
Adam!
But only when a player goes down facing a monster or a beast,
that makes sense.
Something with very low intelligence that is hunting. Because their instinct is just to kill something and leave. So as soon as they knock something unconscious, they're going to try to take it out and then drag it away, And so I play with that, and I let my party know that, like, that's one of the risks to fighting, beasts in the world, is they don't have that moral or that, like, thought process of, I need to make sure everyone's incapacitated before I could get away. So their mindset is, I am hunting, I need to kill.
Yeah. That's a great reminder. We talked last episode about combat, about leveling. We talked about how the system that I run just kind of automatically lends itself to more difficult combat. That said, I pretty rarely have people go down. And I don't know why that is, but like, I pretty rarely even have people making saving throws, which I'm just now realizing while talking to you. So I'm like, maybe I need to make things harder, but...
Wait, hold on. Let's talk about that null fight one more time. So, I will bring this up because I realized listening back to it that I didn't bring it up. But gnolls have an ability that allows them to take an extra attack when something they're fighting drops to 0. If any of us dropped to 0, that fight was over. We were all dead.
Yeah.
So it was like a miracle that none of us ever went down.
But yeah, I run dying with the natural 20. You gain 2, natural 1. You gain 2 the other way, and then anything else as you described, 9 or lower, 10 or higher. That's how I roll dying.
Yeah. And I stick generally to what we talked about. I really like that nat 20 bringing someone back up at 1, because I like the narrative that could happen around it. So like, when it's happened for me in a game, it was when I was playing a light domain cleric. And we had gotten into this fight, and I had gone down, and like the big bad evil guy was, or whoever we were fighting was lamenting about like how the gods had no power here. And in that particular campaign, the god that I was worshiping, I had like the literal incarnation of her heart on an emblem, like on his chest. And he just like, he called out to it before I made the dice roll. I had him like grip it and like look into the distance, and like through the haze he like sees the god that he's looking for, and he makes the nat 20. And then the DM gets this moment of being like, yes, your god responds to you and brings you back up so you can help your allies get through this fight.
Whoa.
And then it happened recently too, because in the Sunday game I'm playing a Reborn, and Reborns have advantage on death saving throws, so they're more likely to get nat 1s. And that Reborn has this whole thing about how he's tied in with the god of fate. and he's like a construct amalgamation of different parts of different people, and we were fighting the person who had stitched him together. And as my character was like laying on the ground, one arm having been torn off, the guy was lamenting about how I didn't have a fate, and my fate was to do whatever he said because he built me. And then that nat 20 came in, so my character had that moment of like, I get to decide my fate, not you. It was also like this super cool moment of coming back and like getting to do something.
Whoa.
So,
Yeah. Dang. That's really cool. Yeah, I hear that. Those are great.
that I will agree that it makes death less scary.
Yeah.
Because you could always gamble on that nat 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And know that there's no risk if you roll the 1. Or not the equivalent of a risk, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you do still fail 2, which is big.
Yeah.
Like, that's any incremental damage on top of that one failure, and you're dead.
Yeah.
Like, they do one small AoE, and you're just dead.
You just don't exist anymore.
Yep. You've gone. Shuffled off the mortal coil.
Oh.
Out of your friend's reach unless they have 300 gold pieces.
Yeah. What about death itself, though? Like, have you developed lore around the act of death within your campaign?
Lore around it in what way?
Like, I'm imagining, and I haven't done this either, but as I've been, like, mulling this over, knowing this is what we're going to talk about, I'm like, well, what can a DM do with death itself? Because essentially, it's kind of a skipped over step in most games, right? It's just like, okay, I'm unconscious, I'm rolling my death savings throws, okay, I failed, now I'm dead, go on, go resurrect me, you know, like, and there's no nothing in between there, right?
No, yeah, there's not like a resolution for that character or a plea or a way for them to persist.
And I don't like that. And so something that I do is if someone ever goes unconscious and they fail a save, I ask them what memory flashes before their eyes. And it gets intense for people, but I love it. And then I had a player actually die in the Wednesday game, and we did this whole RP session where she was a bard, and this isn't like actual spoilers because whatever, but she like ended up on the plane with the god or goddess associated with like who she was as a person, and like had an interaction with them, and then was resurrected, which we'll talk about, and like came back onto the plane and was able to like take that with her as like a building stone for her character. And I feel like it's such a awesome moment that DMs can wield in so many different ways. It is commonly overlooked because, as you and I know, based on all the searching we've just done, there's not really any mention of death in the DMG. There's no instructions. Yeah. It's literally just whatever you, as a tabletop runner, want it to be. And I find that pretty fascinating. Yeah. So that's what I mean about like lore around death. That's a very long answer.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's such a cool idea for each death save to have like something associated with it, like that first one having the memory flash. And so like I do have not mechanical, but I do have plans for things that would happen if characters did die. It's like with a lot of campaigns that end up going to high levels, I've integrated kind of divinity into the game and into the lore. And I kind of stay pretty standard to that. They will, if they die, they will go to the plane that is most associated with their belief system or the decisions they've made, maybe pacts that they've chosen to be part of. But on top of that, I think when death happens, my main goal is to sit down and have a conversation with the players above table about how they want to proceed with it. Because I guess this might be kind of a longer tangent if you're okay
go
with
for
that.
it.
But the first time I ran any kind of D&D-esque game, I was running it for a client. I used to work with children and young adults on the spectrum, and I had a client who was super motivated by playing Dungeons and Dragons. So what we did is I ran a game for him one-on-one. And like during that, I had talked to him. I had told him that like death was a possibility, and that's like part of telling the story. But one thing that I learned was really fun, both for him and for me, was to have this conversation when things went bad. Of, hey, this is going bad, and this is what's going to happen. Is this what you want to happen, or do you want there to be a plot twist here? Do you want there to be a situation where this won't be a permanent thing, but you have a way to make it better in the future? And so it was a really cool exercise there to get this, like, no, I want there to be a plot twist. I want to be able to come back, and then we could tell a story about what happens after the death and gives a chance for redemption, like almost Zagreus, Escape from Hell style, which is also a really cool storytelling moment. So in the main campaign that I'm running, that's kind of what I would do if death were to happen. So I would talk to the players. I would talk to them like, how are you feeling about your character? Do you want this to be the end? If you don't want this to be the end, here are some options that I have, and we'll play through it as a story. And we'll get everyone on board above table, so there's not this kind of schism that happens. Or just so we're all kind of on the same page as like communal storytellers.
Yeah. You're so kind, Adam.
Well, again, like my whole thing in running the game is I just want us to have fun and tell a cool story.
I want that too.
And sometimes...
But I also want risk.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a risk. We could run the story and they could try to get it back and it could go horribly wrong. And they could lose someone else along the way.
True.
And that risk is still there.
Mm-hmm.
No, nothing's without risk. But, like, I think the game should have risk, but the risk shouldn't come at the cost of not being able to finish the story.
Yeah.
At least that's my current perspective on it.
I'm stumped. I love that. I love having the involvement of the players. And I remember, this is the most recent one. So, the Wednesday game, messaging the person and being like, this isn't going well. Granted, they were one hit down. Level 2's fighting hellhounds. And I was like, how are you feeling about this? And they were like, it's fine. I have another character. Like, we don't even need to stop the session. Like, I'll just work on another character right now. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. That's great. But then the party, this is the other thing, like, that I like about the storytelling of the risk of actual death. Probably the best moment I've ever experienced in a tabletop game happened because of my rules around resurrection and what just happened to be. I can tell this full story once we're like through that, but like, it was the most magical moment, and now all of them grew so much closer, and like the story they can tell together is so much better because two of them are essentially eternally connected. Yeah. Death.
Yeah. No, it's a great storytelling tool. Like, I love it as everything. Like, I love how it could drive and bring the party closer together. And
Yeah. Have you ever seen someone
Versus the narrative.
integrate mechanics around death itself in a game?
Mechanics around it in which way? Like in a way where if they die, they would like come back as a ghost and follow the party,
No,
or
more like true like math, like mechanics. Like if you die, you have to roll on this table I created, and this tells you what happens to your, like true.
Yeah. I I haven't seen anything like that. I would not be surprised if that exists somewhere, and if there's some DMs who do that, and like that would make
it could be great.
You weigh your sins of your life, and then I roll a D100.
It's very Anubis of you, Adam.
Yeah.
What's next? Resurrection? Will you be resurrected if you die? I have a rule about this in my game that is outside of the norm, in that essentially there's an extra cost to resurrection magic, in that it's soul for a soul. So you either, and it can't be like, oh, here's a dog. Like, it has to be comparable.
Yeah. Wait, what are you saying about dog souls?
I'm just saying, if you want to bring back your dead dog, bring me another dog. But if you want to bring back your tabaxi friend, then you got to bring me a humanoid soul,
Oh.
And that has been a pretty incredible tool.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool extra cost.
Yeah. So, like, maybe you're whatever level cleric and you're going to cast Resurrection and you have the 300 gold. It doesn't matter because you have to have a soul. A willing soul.
Yeah. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I think for most good aligned parties, that just makes Resurrection like that. It becomes. That's not true. In a game with a lot of people who enjoy the storytelling, it becomes an interesting weight of like who's going to bear the burden the most. Like, who has the most to gain out of the party? How do you feel about the person who died? The thing that my mind always goes to is a lot of the games that I've been a part of in the past, where it's who in the party wants to re-roll and play a new character, is what that really becomes. It's like, someone's dead. Well, one of us gets to play what we've got in the wings, this cool build I've been juicing up, which is not a way that I play D&D anymore. So... But I know that a lot of people do, and a lot of people have fun with that. And for that kind of game, that's so good for, like, the entire table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for, like, a really story-driven table, that becomes, like, almost like Resurrection doesn't exist unless it's a very, very specific niche case.
Mm-hmm. Which I can now share with you.
Or, like, that relationship was built. Yeah. Please.
So it's actually Liz and Daniel's characters, believe it or not. So Rare Trick, whom you all have met on a stream, little baby Rare Trick, level 2, is in a party with Daniel's armor artificer named Ironheart. And Daniel came to me with this insane backstory. I have no idea what inspired them to choose that backstory, what have you. And I'm not going to spoil all of it. But essentially... he is a warforged who was created from, a discarded body after the 100-Year War by someone inexperienced just trying to bring back a family member. And when trying to bring them back through magics that were unstable and that they didn't really understand, they actually trapped both their souls in the body of the Warforged. They used they them pronouns. They were mute because they couldn't understand how to speak because they were two people in this mechanical body. And it was a mother-son relationship, which was just like, aw. And then Rare Trick and Ironheart were like the best of buds from the beginning. Like they wrote their backstories together, all that. Rare Trick goes down. They take her to Gilda. They're in Florencia. They take her to Gilda, and they're like, "You have to bring her back." And she's like, "How? What? Like, what do you want from me?"
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, "What? What are you talking about? Like, I can do it. Like, just bring her back." And then there's this amazing moment where like the mother soul inside Ironheart's body is just like, "You're old enough now. Like, I'm gonna give you the life that I always wanted you to have," and like sacrifices itself to bring Rare Trick back to life. And it was like all of us were in tears. Like,
Yeah.
it was beautiful and insane. And also Daniel was like, "Okay, that was our one shot at level 2. Like, I can't do that again."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. That's such a cool moment for a table.
It was
to have.
great. But what are the normal resurrection rolls?
Yeah, so normally you basically just need a diamond. You need a diamond and the ability to cast spells at a certain level, which starts when you're able to cast 3rd level spells, which is at level 5. So at level 5, a couple classes get access to a spell called Revivify, which allows you to touch a creature that has died within the last minute, and it returns to life with 1 hit points. And the spell can't return a creature to life that has died of old age, nor can it restore any missing body parts. It requires a 300 gold piece diamond, which, the way I run it in my world, that's a very rare commodity. Because we're in kind of an artificer revolution area of the world, which is using spellcraft and, technology to build these amazing things. And diamonds are just this great magical conduit for energy. So whenever there's a diamond, it's immediately bought by someone who is very wealthy and trying to make really cool things. So that's how I make resurrection scarce in my game, which I don't think is nearly as cool or lends to storytelling moments as much as Soul for Soul, but makes it more possible to do. And it was the entire plot hook of the first 4 levels of my campaign. The very first story that they went on was they were joining this guild, and they just had to go spend a night in the woods and just survive and come back. And there were 2 or 3 different groups that went out into the woods to do this. You had the main party, and then there was another party which included the essentially princess of the dynasty, who had kind of run off to try to join this guild to be like a little rebellious. And they had many opportunities to have this princess join their party, but instead they adopted what was previously a nameless NPC and had them join the party instead. So shenanigans happen. They have a lot of opportunities to stop a ritual in which this princess was abducted and going to be sacrificed. But they ignored a call from Ascending Stone that they had captured from a group of bandits that tried to jump them in the night. They took a long time to get there, and that princess was sacrificed, and it brought in a devil. And they ended by bringing the body back to town. So the entire arc was then that they were going on a quest on the behest of the cleric of Lathander to find a diamond to bring her back to life. And that was the whole plot of the first arc of the story.
That's epic.
Yeah.
That's so cool, though. Also, like, it's built into your lore that, like, diamonds are hard to get. And that's, like, that's great. Like, it'd be different if you were just, like, didn't make any rules or regulations around resurrection, then you were just like, oh yeah, no store has that.
Yeah. That'd be kind of
That'd be
lame.
awful.
Oh, you couldn't find them.
I'm sorry, we're sold out. We only had 6 today. They're all gone.
Oh no, we don't have
Yeah.
them. Weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of Soul for a Soul is really cool. I like the ability to have that story arc exist if a character dies. To be like, let's go on a quest to bring them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever played in a game that's sort of like Wheel of Time, where when you die, you kind of instantly resurrect as someone or something else?
Ooh, I haven't. But it's kind of cool. That would be a cool idea.
Reincarnation.
Yeah. Which is also a spell.
Yeah. Is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Only druids get to cast the reincarnate
Whoa.
spell. This one's a fun one. So it's a 5th level spell. It's the same level as Raised Dead, which is the next resurrection spell that exists. It's a 5th level spell. So your party has to have reached 9th level to get access to it. As a druid, you must have an amount of rare oils and unguents worth at least 1,000 gold pieces, which the spell consumes. But notably not a diamond.
No diamonds.
So it's got a casting time of 1 hour. So you can't do it quickly. It's got a range of touch. And you touch a dead humanoid or a piece of a dead humanoid. Provided that the creature has been dead no longer than 10 days, the spell forms a new adult body for it and then calls the soul to enter that body. If the target's soul isn't free or willing to do so, the spell fails. The magic fashions a new body for the creature to inhabit, which likely causes the creature's race to change. The GM rolls a D100 and consults the following table to determine what form the creature takes when restored to life, or the GM chooses a form. And then there's a D100 table.
Whoa.
Where you could randomly come back as a dragonborn, a hill dwarf, a mountain dwarf, a dark elf, a high elf, a wood elf, a forest gnome, a rock gnome, a half elf, a half orc, a halfling lightfoot, a halfling stout, a human, or a tiefling.
It's an old table.
Yes, it is an old table. It was in the first book, and it has never been updated because only druids could cast it. It's never entered another spell list.
Wow. I didn't know that existed. I've never played a character that high of a level in a campaign, though, like only like one shots.
Yeah. I've played with one other player who was playing a druid who got to this level, but I don't think they ever took the spell. This one's kind of a tricky one. It's a tricky one if you use the table as it is. It's a really cool one if you consult with the player and kind of ask them what they want out of the reincarnate.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely like mechanics versus non-mechanics. Like, I think that spell is very cool. I would never make anyone roll on that table, and I would never choose for them. I would always have a collaborative conversation with my player and make sure
100%.
that they were cool with it. And like, I would probably I'm like a huge fan of like whispering, which is like, if we play in Discords, I have a whispering channel where I'll like pull a player down to have a private conversation. And I definitely think that those are conversations you would want to have without the rest of the party, because also, what an amazing story would it be if the druid goes through all this to try and get a player back, only to find out that their soul doesn't want to.
Yeah. That happened in in the first game I played in 5th edition. So it was traumatic for my character. It was such a, like, we had one fight where 2 of the party members essentially died. Like, we were betrayed by an NPC we had trusted, like, the entire campaign, and they just, like, killed our wizard and then, like, jumped off a cliff where they had, like, a plan to survive the fall. And then our warlock just jumped after them because they were so pissed off about what happened. And then, the warlock found a really nasty creature at the bottom of that ravine and also died.
Fuck.
And then my character who was left went and found a healer who could resurrect and, like, bought the diamond. And when we went to go resurrect the wizard, And the wizard was like, nah, his soul's not willing.
No.
It was like, that left my character as the only remaining character from the initial party that started the campaign that was still alive. Yeah.
That's intense.
It's really intense. That like changed my character's entire like alignment and worldview. Because like his bond was that like the people he traveled with, he'd do anything for to protect them, and he just failed at protecting literally everyone he traveled with.
Wow.
It was brutal.
Whoa.
Yeah. But reincarnate is a cool spell.
What's the most powerful
I think I would...
resurrection spell?
What's that? It's probably wish.
Oh, yeah.
But it's wishing to cast true... Well... it might not be wish. The most powerful one is true resurrection, which is the 9th level spell. Which still has a casting time of an hour. Still has a range of touch. The target has to be a creature that has been dead for no longer than 200 years and died for any reason except old age. And it requires a sprinkle of holy water and diamonds worth at least 25,000 gold pieces, which the spell consumes. But this is, of course, a 9th level spell that you can't use until, level 17 at the earliest. And only, I think, clerics and bards have access. Clerics and druids are the only two that have access to this spell naturally. Bards with bardic secrets could probably get access to it too. But you touch a dead creature that has been dead for no longer than 200 years and that died for any reason except old age. I already read this.
You did. It's okay.
But it is restored to life with all of its hit points. The spell closes all of its wounds, neutralizes any poisons, cures all diseases, and lifts any curse affecting the creature when it died. It replaces damaged or missing organs and limbs, and the spell can even provide a brand new body if the original no longer exists, in which case you must speak the creature's name. The creature then appears in an unoccupied space you choose within 10 feet of you.
Man.
So it's the only resurrection spell that could bring you back if you've been disintegrated.
But not wish?
I think wish, you can technically with wish. Because you could technically do anything with wish. But you'd be using the scary side of wish that has the really terrible drawbacks. That also comes with the chance that you can no longer cast wish ever again. But you could use wish to cast normal resurrection without paying the material cost, which is like true resurrection, except it doesn't lift curses. The person who comes back with, I think, 1 HP. No, it comes back to life with all of its hit points still, but it has a -4 penalty to all attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks until it rests for enough nights to get all of those penalties down by 1 per night. And resurrection also, until you finish a long rest after you've cast it, you can't cast any spells again, and you have disadvantage on all attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. So you could wish to cast resurrection, but you'll still have the downsides of resurrection.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
What fantasy content outside of D&D, literature, movies, comics, manga, anime, like where does this resurrection come from? I'm very curious because like I instantly think of like Monkey's Paw, where it's like there's always a downside.
Yeah. To resurrection or to wish?
To resurrection, sorry.
Okay. I'd have to look into it. It definitely has an origin outside of D&D. And I think it might have an origin going back to like Greek mythos and probably before that, because there's oh man, I haven't read the story, so I'm just going off of hearsay and I might be completely wrong. But isn't that like kind of what Dante's Inferno is about. He's trying to fight his way through hell to be resurrected.
I know he's trying to fight his way through hell,
also,
but I don't know. Yeah, I've never read that either, actually.
There's also there's the two Greek characters who he goes into. Hercules is one of them, but there's a different one where there's a character who goes into the underworld to find his lover, and if he gets them out of the underworld without looking at her, they both are alive, but if he looks at her ever, they're both dead forever. And then he looks at her at the very last second.
It's Eurydice and
they're no longer. Yes.
Hadestown. What the fuck is his name? Yes. Eurydice is the woman's really name. They're like the.
Yeah.
Nah!
I've been playing.
You can add us on that one.
Gone. Yeah, add us on that. Hit us with that one. I haven't played Hades in long enough. They're both two very prominent characters in that game, which is a lot of fun. But there's a lot of stories about people trying to cheat death or come back to life.
I guess I just am not familiar. I can't recall one in this moment where it's like an inherently magic world where like you can just circumvent death with a spell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's usually like a quest associated with it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about dying. We talked about death. We talked about resurrection.
We sure did. How do we do Banes and Blesses on
I don't know.
One? This one seems... I'm not sure if we need to do Banes and Blesses all of the time.
Yeah.
Blessed, blessed, blessed pain.
So I just want to say one thing that I might incorporate is your idea of the soul for a soul in certain cases.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe if we're taking this idea of trying to take both and working them into one, it's that you need the component of a diamond, but if you need to resurrect and you don't have that, a soul could be used in its place.
Oh, yeah.
So then you might even have situations where you're not a spellcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just plead for
that. That's another reason why I really like it.
Because
it can be anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I would say another way you could use both, like have the risk of death and maintain access to normal resurrection spells, is through lore, is through like building it into your world where like every town has a temple that someone can do this for, or like every town has a hospital, you know, like what have you for your world and your time period and whatever level of magic or non-magic your society has. But just having easy-ish access to those that can help, like the Gilda. The party was level 2. They could never have casted those spells on their own, even if they had, Ironheart. So having the option to go to a healer to do that, I think, is important if you want to provide balance there across all party levels.
Yeah. And like it makes a lot of sense for that to exist in any like high fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Because it would be very weird if, your party was the first ones to discover the ability to just bring people back to life. Like if that was a thing that people knew existed and could do, think of like the people who would go out of their way and the sacrifices they would make to be able to do that. Like it would definitely be a lot of people outside of the party.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother can of worms, but just like I have trouble with allowing casters outside of sorcerers to do something brand new in the world. Because most every other spellcaster has had to learn their magic. right? So how
Yeah.
is a wizard going to cast a resurrection spell if they can't learn it from somewhere? You get what I'm saying?
Yes. I think there's also an additional thing of divine versus
Oh,
arcane
yeah, absolutely.
that happens in that particular example.
Yeah.
But I think I would go the opposite, and where the only people who, in my world, would be able to create new spells would be wizards, because they are studying how the spell works. So the really, studied wizards will know how each part of it works to make a spell work, and then can take parts of different spells and put them together to create something
Is
new.
this the horse before the cart, or the chicken before the egg scenario? It might be. I think we have fundamentally different ideas on how magic exists in our worlds, which is really cool.
Yeah. Ooh, add that to the list. I'll write it right here. Magic systems. Oh, that would be a really
That
good
would be a
topic,
good one.
actually.
Well, yeah, I don't think we need to
A lot
do
of cool
Blessed and
magic
Banes.
systems.
I would say, personally,
Yeah.
I love a Bless is like not a natural 20 you're up with 1 HP. But even if you wanted to do both for that, like you could say you're stable instead. Like you could fill all 3 of those saves, but like you're not backup. Things like that.
Yeah. Or it could be you nat 20, you come back up with 1, but you go down at the end of the turn and you're still at the same death saves, death fails. You didn't get an extra 2. You didn't lose 1. You just gained 1 more turn up to help the party.
Yeah. Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah. You made it to the end.
You made it to the end.
Where we were talking about death, dying, and resurrection. Feel free to talk about how you deal with death, dying, and resurrection in your games. Because, as we've kind of talked about, there aren't any rules on this one. The only rule is, if they fail 3 death saves, they're dead. And,
Spells have costs.
yeah, if they take damage equal to their hit points, when they die, they're dead. Have fun.
Have fun.
So yeah, I think we both also agree that it's a really cool storytelling tool.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also a great tool for people who are more mechanics based if they just want to play another character.
Yeah.
Some people will just be like, this is the greatest thing. I get to play something cool without starting a new campaign. That was definitely how my table growing up viewed it. So.
I have thoughts on that, but we don't have the time.
Yeah. You play your game of D&D. Play D&D how it makes you happy. Be happy playing D&D. Be happy running D&D.
Or Pathfinder, or Root, or Wander Home,
Yeah.
or whatever the game you're playing. Although we're talking about
Dread
the
or-
mechanics of
Yeah.
D&D 5e, can tell a great story across many TTRPGs.
Can indeed.
So both?
Both.
Both is good.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Goodbye. See ya. Well, I don't know how to do an outro. Man, I have to write one of those now.